Welcome. I'm happy to have you
Oh my
here.
gosh, I'm so happy to be here.
So fun. Thank you for hanging with me. Obviously, I feel like most of our community probably knows who you are, what you do, but feel free to just give us a quick little rundown and we'll get into it.
Hi, everyone. My name is Cait Scudder. I am the CEO and founder of the Millionaire Mother. I am a mom of three kids under four, certifiably insane, want another one already.
Truly
I am
insane. Especially the
a
last part got me. She told me that recently, and I was like, oh, wow.
I mean, this is why the human race continues. I'm like, this little
Amen.
dude popped out less than 6 months ago, and I'm just like, I can keep going. Um, I'm a business coach. I have been in business since 2017. I rebranded my company a year ago, a little
Yeah.
over a year ago, but I have been a mom since 2020. And I feel like my first was born in 2020, which obviously radically changed my world. Then my second was born in 2022. And I can't remember if I've shared this analogy with you, Lacey, but for me, obviously, like a massive identity transition is going from 0 to 1. But for me, going from 1 to 2 felt like I need to fundamentally rearrange how I
Yeah.
am talking about, because I was like, a business coach who's former athlete, like just all about women rising into our full power potential, using it to build incredible movements. I'm a manifestor in human design. I have that pioneering energy. But when I had kids, I was like, I just want to be centering in the conversation how important it is for moms for how important it is for us to think about like what changes for us as moms when we're
Yeah.
running business with kids. And the more kids I started to have, the more I like couldn't hide how important that conversation was to me. And then I had this full transmission. I joke that like Lacey is also my business coach and has been for 7 years. I'm like such a lifer, Lace. Can we have like a decade anniversary?
Oh my God.
Because you know I'm going to
We're
be.
doing a thing for that.
We're renting a yacht. No, just kidding. But
We're not.
I've been with Lacey forever. But I joke that aside from Lacey, James was also like my business coach who, when
Yeah.
he was like a month or two in utero, it was like, it is time to rebrand this whole motherfucker to the Millionaire Mother. And so we did. Here we are, multiple seven-figure brand, multiple millions in the last gosh, whatever, 3, 4 years since I have popped all these children out. And my mission is supporting moms to grow and scale companies in alignment with their reality as a mother. So
Yeah,
that's what I do.
totally. I think like that's what's so interesting. I think you and I both like have, kind of interesting experiences in that we like built these businesses before being moms to an
Yeah.
extent, right? But then also had to like decide what that looks like as moms. And I think like there's something easier about that experience in the sense that like you've done some of the like hard work without kids. There's also something harder in other ways about that experience because you've built it in
Totally.
a certain way and now you have to totally rethink and reimagine that. So it's like this really interesting dichotomy there of like
Totally.
pieces that make it easier and harder, right?
Yes, and it's classic human behavior. Like, oh, this side has it so much easier if it's
Exactly.
so much easier to build it before. But then on the other hand, like, yeah, I was making multiple six figures. I was featured in Forbes. I had like made it, but the pressure of
Yeah.
being the breadwinner, having this like successful business, and then being like, will I even? I mean, literally, I will never forget. I was in West Hollywood. I bought the freaking pregnancy test, came home. I had a coaching call like shortly thereafter. That was back when I was like still using Basecamp with you, Lace. And I was like, all capitals, I am pregnant. You were like, besides Toby, who's in my house, one of the first people I told. And
Yep.
I was freaked. I was elated. I was so excited. And then, like a couple days later, I was literally rummaging in Google Drive trying to find my resume, being like, I'm going to have to close this business down. I don't have enough passive products. I need to quick like funnel hack, Russell Brunson to like know how to build this like digital
Yeah.
product business. I'm still doing Zoom calls. Like I was like viscerally terrified. And so there totally is that two sides of the coin thing. But you know, what's interesting, I had built my business, I had experienced success before becoming a mom, but the thing, number one, I like completely dissolved and then rebirthed parts of my
Yeah.
business after being a mom of multiple kids. But the pressure of like doing it that way, it's just different. It's hard either way, honestly. But there's a real something that motherhood brings to the equation, that
Yeah.
certainly for me wasn't there before in the same way.
Totally. Two things I forgot to say. If y'all are here, oh, Nikki said more power to you, but she's done it three. Hey, Glenn. Hey, Michelle. Hey, Crystal. If y'all are here, and you comment, you're entered to win any of our products. Just as like a thank you for being here. I always forget to say that. But anyway, like I totally agree with you. I think there's just different pieces, and I think every time you've gotten pregnant now, three and counting, the intensity with which you feel that like, oh my God, this is like unsustainable, I think has shifted quite a bit, right?
Yes.
Like time number one, you were like, everything is wrong. We'll have to burn it all down.
Code red. Yes.
Right. Like time number two, I think you were like, oh, this is pretty intense, but I kind of like trust what I built now. And then time number three, you were like, actually, this is my quantum leap. Right. And so it's like really evolved each time. But I
Yes.
think that like it's, you have to put in the work to make that evolution happen too.
100%. And it's interesting. It's really helpful to think about it in that way. One thing that I feel like motherhood in particular, like the whole shebang, pregnancy, birth, postpartum, raising this expanded constellation of souls, that are like you're in charge of to keep alive. Um, there is what happens, and this is just like so true in different like business decisions and risks that we take, and then we like compound this like lived experience. And so it becomes easy. Not that like it doesn't feel uncomfortable or hard to like take risks in the future or something, but it's like I've done that before, so I got
Yeah.
me. That's my experience anyway in like making
Yeah.
business decisions. But with motherhood, you're so right. And that like each time, in some ways, like the stakes got higher. But the sense of peace or
Yeah.
self-trust deepened even as the stakes continued to rise in like very meaningful, tangible 3D ways. Like with the last rebrand, I closed down, and I know we weren't going to talk about this, so I'll just mention this briefly, but I closed down a seven-figure container, a container that had made multiple millions actually over the course of my career. And I issued $100,000 over that worth of refunds. I slashed our MRR by 70%. I mean, it was literally like cue the Frozen 2 Into the Unknown soundtrack. It was like, like just a free fall in many ways. But I was like, I have gone into the unknown so many times now in the most like fundamental physiological sense, from like
Yeah.
giving birth and being pregnant and going and raising these kids where every day is just like, you know, there's no manual, that I know that the only way to grow and have this rebirth and this renaissance and this expansion is to like go there all the way. And I think that that is one of
Yeah.
the great advantages we have as mothers, is we have this like somatic memory encoded into us where we can trust what we don't know, because we know that literally all life comes from that place.
Yeah. It's so funny because I remember I kept saying, like when I was pregnant with Bennett, is like, I know what my business looks like now. And I know like, you know, what I want it to look like through maternity leave. But after that, it's like a big black hole. Like I don't know what that looks like. I can't remember 10 to know what that looks like. So I agree with you. And I think on the topic of why more mothers aren't millionaires, like I think that one of those things is that risk tolerance for the unknown, or that
Yes.
tolerance for like not having it all figured out. Like I think that that's so huge in the entrepreneurial space, is you have to have a pretty high level of risk tolerance to be a millionaire making millions, right? And then you also have to be really as comfortable as you can possibly get with the unknown. And I think as a mom, unknown is way scarier, right? Because it's
Mm-hmm.
not just you, it like means so much more. And the
Mm-hmm.
risk feels so much riskier, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's like, I would be interested to hear you talk on that, because I do feel like that's like really a barrier. for some moms is that it feels like almost like irresponsible to take that risk or to step into that unknown, you know?
Totally. So this is why, like the title of this is why more mothers aren't millionaires.
Yeah.
I think ask any successful entrepreneur what got them to where they are. There is no way that in that conversation, they are not citing the willingness to take risks as being the thing. I mean, that is why we're entrepreneurs. We're freaking crazy. Most people are content to have a paycheck handed to them because of the security that or the illusion of security, but don't get me started. But the feeling of security, in some ways, it is, it's like we choose our hard, right? For
Totally.
some people, that decision, even if it has an element of like soul suckingness or not, even just like not feeling like completely fulfilled. And for some people, they have employment and they absolutely love that. So that is the track for many people. Then there's this like sector in the middle where it's like, it's not my fullest thing, but like, it feels better for me to be like under fulfilled and under earning potentially in some ways, but have that security of income, benefits, whatever, than being an entrepreneur. Like, I'm good. Like, that's me. And then there are the entrepreneurs, and we are like, I'm allergic to that. I
Yeah.
would rather take the risk, go into the unknown, build something that has never existed, and create that from scratch because I have a vision and I'm willing to fall down, but I have this like intrinsic like thing in me that is propelling me towards living out this dream or bringing this product or offer or service into the world. And that path is more worth it for me. And I don't know if it's because my dad was an entrepreneur, not a very successful entrepreneur, but he had just like, he was just very entrepreneurial. And I don't know if it's my athletic background, but like I just have that. And so I have watched that in myself, but it is fascinating. I mean, like I said, I rebranded my company to exclusively working with mothers and women who are planning for motherhood in the future. A year ago, but I've been mentoring women in business, like thousands of women over the course of my career. And the conversations that I've had, even in just the last couple of years alone, where I've primarily been working with moms and then the last year pretty much exclusively, it's fascinating, Lacey, because when as moms, we absorb like this unspoken role as being the like goalie of our families
Oh, totally.
and of like all so it's where it's this interesting juxtaposition where we're the entrepreneur, we're like on the offensive, we're like taking the risk, setting the vision, like we're the forwards, but as the mom we're like goalie, like do you have your extra underwear, your snack, your water bottle, okay honey, love you, bye. And then financially we're supposed to be like no, I have to save for college, nope, I've got to like save for like our bathroom renovation, I've like the buck stops with me. And I think for a lot of moms who feel a lot of guilt and pressure and like hookedness from that cultural assignment of being the goalie of our families, it feels really confusing and like contradictory with a lot of what is required to be successful as an entrepreneur, which is the willingness to take risks, to see gaps, to freaking go for it. And so I think a lot more mothers aren't millionaires because we're afraid to have the conversations. Number one, see that and let ourselves evolve on an identity level. But number two, have the challenging conversation, whether that's with our spouse, whether that is with, our teams, whether that is with our infrastructure at large, to be able to give ourselves permission to play a bigger game in entrepreneurship, because that's what it takes to be successful.
Yes. Steph says she's totally resonating with this. Yeah. So I think something that really comes up for me there that feels like relevant to say, like as almost like kind of like an aside to that is like, I shared about this recently, but like, my husband, has like a big job. He travels a lot. He's gone a lot. And like in many ways, my business kind of does move around
I
that.
saw that. I loved that. Yeah.
And also, and I think this is really important to say, our family prioritizes my business too, right?
Mhm.
Like my husband sees it as meaningful and important. And like we treat it as that, where I feel like so many moms feel like everything for us should come last.
Yes. Totally. And
right?
that's
And
what
we
being
do
a
that.
good mom and a good wife and a supportive wife, because your husband, we're not saying like, okay, Kenny's job doesn't matter. It's all about me. We're like,
Yeah.
these are two important things. And
Yeah.
you being a good wife, a loving wife, a supportive wife is like acknowledging that while also saying, cool. And I'm also running a 7-figure company and this is what I need. And it doesn't mean this is the interesting thing, right? Because like never in a million years would you say like, babe, I've got like XYZ important calls, or I did this intensive, or I have these sales calls on this day. He like, I don't know, I could be wrong, but I'm going to guess that Kenny doesn't assume, cool, I'm like in charge of watching Bennett all day, right? But
Right. Totally. Mm.
the collective thought is like, oh, we need to organize childcare because I'm on a plane and Lacey has a call.
Yeah.
Like it
Mhm.
would never be the assumption that you would just like 100% give it up. But yet that's what moms do because we're the primary caregivers most of the time.
And because again, like you said, like patriarchy, cultural narrative is like that's a good mom. But I think so many moms back themselves into this really, really, really difficult and impossible corner. And again, not through their own fault necessarily, but I think through like societal conditioning where they're supposed to do that, put themselves last, put their business last, not inconvenience anyone, figure it all out, and also make millions. And it's like, it does not work like that. Like, your business has to be an important thing in your life and your family. And if it's not, that's okay too, like that. But if it's always getting the scraps and it always comes after your kid and after your husband, it's always getting the last of it, it's always going to get the last of it, right? It's like,
Totally. And this
that's how
is
it
why,
is.
oh my God, this is so good. And this is where like the martyr culture really comes
Yep.
in because you could literally insert into that whole sentence or multiple sentences, Lace, like health, right? If it's like, I'm literally content to eat like bits of salami and macaroni and cheese off the floor and like forget to drink water and like joke that like I'm surviving on black coffee and Pinot Grigio because I'm a mom, like,
Yep.
of course I am going to feel like shit. It's like we've got to put first the things that matter to us. And we have to, as mothers, stop saying that not doing that is for the family. Like, what a burden to put on our kids to say that. So, whether it's our health, whether it is our wealth and the growth of our business, like, I think the big, and this feels like moving the Titanic in some ways, but this big, like, cultural shift is about giving ourselves permission to say, I actually desire to thrive in this area. And then coming together, whether you're, with your spouse, if you're partnered, or like with yourself and your bigger support
Yep.
team, if you're not, but what does it look like to get resourced enough to grow the business that you want to grow?
Yes, I have so many thoughts on that, but I want to read what Stephanie said real quick. What she said, what you said about putting ourselves last reminds me of that scene in the Christmas Story where the kid narrating the movie said that he doesn't think his mom has even eaten her dinner while it's hot because she's so busy making sure her husband and the kids are taken care of. Totally. And I think like for me, this is one of the things that I really get pissed off about in the online space because I think we've gotten so far down the road of this like ease narrative that is even more like internalized guilt and shame as a mom because we're like, oh, it's supposed to be so easy to grow a business as a mom. And like I somehow can't seem to make that happen. And it's like there are things that are easier about having an online business. I mean, by and large, I can be an entirely different mom than I could be if I had to like, go to corporate job or whatever. But at the same time, like that idea that it should be so easy for all of us is so detrimental to moms, especially, I think, because they're like, gosh, why can't I seem to squeeze this in the like hour and a half I have today outside of everyone else's needs? And then they feel wrong and bad and ashamed and behind and all of this shit. And I think it's like really just like you like what you give it will be proportional to what comes out of it is the true truth, right? Like
Mhm.
just like your health or anything else, like you're saying, right? And so like, yes, you do have to carve out an area for your business. It doesn't have to be 40 hours a week, but like if you can't consistently carve out time and support for that, you should not be putting that expectation on yourself that you're getting the results of someone who can. Like nobody wants to hear that, but it's just true.
Totally. And the deeper thing there, though, because I think that's true. And I think that more and more women are waking up to that, where I
Yeah,
think mothers in particular really need support is the guilt of like, oh my God, I want to work on my business 20 hours a week.
absolutely.
And
Mhm.
it's like, just this like cascade of feeling of shame, of guilt, of oh my gosh, I'm a bad mom. And like, listen, I'm like as crunchy granola as you're gonna get. I have like live on a farm. We homestead. We like friggin' make our own sauerkraut. Like we are crunchy people. And I absolutely love spending so much time with our kids. And I love working on my business. And I love having infrastructure and support and other trusted humans that they are learning to grow their little nervous systems and have like healthy attachment and connection with a wider village because mommy is prioritizing the thing that she loves in the hours that I've allocated to do that.
Yeah.
Not set carte blanche, because I feel like the false dichotomy is if you're working on your business, you're like deprioritizing your kids. And then we have so much fear. I mean, I don't know about you, but I fucking hate, I mean, it does get me emotional, but I also hate the like scarcity of like, it's only 18 summers.
I
And like, then
know.
it's like, way to put like a ticking time bomb on
Yeah.
motherhood and have this like total like scarcity feeling as opposed to the spaciousness of like, we've got time. Yes, it goes fast. Yes, it's hard, but like, we've got time. And if mommy is spending 20 hours a week working on her business, that's still a hell of a lot of time to build beautiful memories with your kids. And it's also really supporting them if you're invested in finding the right other support during the time that you're not with them to grow their little systems of like a wider web of connection in that village that so many of us growing up in this like false thing that exists nowhere else in the world except for these like hyper individualized Western societies where kids are growing up with inside of the nuclear family and that is it alone. No wonder everyone's freaking depressed and anxious. It's because like that's not how we're supposed to be raised. And so we're not all about to like go live in villages, but if you have a nanny, that's part of your village. If you
Yeah,
send your kid
totally.
to daycare, that's part of your village. Sorry, I'm having a soapbox moment, but I feel very
No, no,
strongly
it's
about
so
this.
true. Yeah, Nikki said like 18 summers is just chaotic energy, which is so true. And Glenn said, first of all, that 18 summers is for parents that expect their kids to be done with them after they're 18. My kids are 19 and 21 and are still very much hanging with me. I love that,
I
Glenn.
love
It
that.
makes me
So
so proud
beautiful.
of. But like, yeah, I totally agree. I also think that like it's such a weird measuring stick to me to a certain extent too, that like good parenting just equals time. Like if you think about any other relationship in your life, like I don't use time as the barometer for any other relationship in my life. Like I'm not like, oh, Kenny and I have a good marriage if we get X amount of time together. It's like almost irrelevant. It's like Kenny and I have a good marriage if the time we have together is like meaningful and connected and all of that kind of
Mm-hmm.
stuff, right? Same with my girlfriend, same with anything else. And so I think with our kids, like if we use time as a barometer, like we're missing so many of the other pieces that actually create healthy attachment and real connection and all of that kind of stuff too, because it feels like, well, I'm just here. So that's enough. And it's like, that's not it. Right. And so not that saying that people that spend a lot of time with their kids aren't present, but I'm just saying like, for me, as soon as I was like, well, how would I measure the success of like a great relationship and I realized it had nothing to do with that. It was like easier for me to detach from that idea that like Bennett's well-being is based on me being with him 24/7. And it's like Bennett's
Yes.
well-being is based on like what it looks like when we're together. And of
Yeah.
course, what his time looks like when we're apart too, like you said,
Totally.
village and stuff.
Absolutely.
But I think that get so far away from seeing it as that. And then I think again, like if we talk about this from an industry perspective, what that amounts to, I think, is a lot of moms who are trying to both work and care for their children full time on top of each other. And they feel like they're never doing each very well.
Yes.
Right. And like, obviously, so much respect for the moms that are showing up in that way. That is an incredible feat. And I think, again, it kind of comes down to this like piece a little bit of all this pressure that we feel as women to like do it all, be it all, show up for
Mm-hmm.
it all. And I think like sometimes that is what keeps us from the millions. Like millions
Oh,
usually like
totally.
focused effort. It looks like attention and intensity in a direction for a period of time. And when it's like all blended together all the time, I think that sometimes it can really work against us.
I 100% agree. And I mean, I often say like we can, and I think that if for uh, women who are in that position, it can understandably be very triggering to hear somebody like you or me say like, you can have it all, because it's like, I'm over here washing these dishes, answering emails, doing it. And it's like, no, 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 that's it. I said, have it all, not do it all, because I sure as hell don't do it all. I didn't make my kids lunch today. I went down and nursed my baby in between some calls. I played with my toddlers for like 10, 15 minutes, but like the majority of space held for them today was our nanny. And I am going to have, like, I had all morning with them. I'm going to have all afternoon with them. I have my like focused mom time, but I am not trying to do it all at every single moment. And I think that transition is really hard, because before we get on to like the practical pieces that have to be in place, we have to give ourselves permission to not feel guilty for not wanting to do it all.
I think something that's so interesting about what you said there too, but I totally agree. Like, Bennett doesn't know who made his lunch today. Like, you know what I
Yeah,
mean? Like,
for
right.
sure.
But I also think something that I find really interesting on this conversation too is like when I think about like the village stuff, like the person that like you could get to like help in your home or even nanny or whatever. Um, so often that's almost like the lowest expense kind of stuff.
Mhm.
Right? But we're almost so quick to spend on the highest expense kind of stuff. Like we're like, oh, okay, should I try to spend like whatever, $10,000 a month on ads and see if that does it? Almost like fingers crossed kind of thing. Instead of being like,
Yes.
what if I was like resourced in my home and in my life to feel like I had space to even like show up in my business and think about that? And I'm not saying ads are a bad investment, but I just think that like it's funny to me how much like we're programmed to almost not think about those things, even though when you look at it from like a logistical standpoint, like they're actually less investments most of the
Oh
time.
my God, yes. And this is why, like, when I rebranded and we really shifted the body of work, I built out this whole program called Homefront, which is included inside of MME. But that is literally like the systems, the structures, the job description, the
Yeah.
freaking laundry commandments. But like, you can bring somebody, the things that feel like they take so much time, they eat mental bandwidth. What I think is so important that we recognize and that we like allow to surface and be true for us as mother entrepreneurs is like the playing field is not equal. And that is not like a complainy, victimy space. It's just an acknowledgement of like someone without kids and someone with kids. The hours, 8 hours, 4 hours, whatever the working time is not the same, because the amount, whether it's like there is a small person sitting on your lap at the computer or not, the mental load of what is happening outside of the like cloister of your office is just greater when you have children and you have a family and that of other small people in there. And what I have found to be so fascinating, Lace, is that the moms need support with the things that fall outside of business in order to be successful in business and in order to be able to make money. So whether that is a meal prep solution, whether it is a nanny, whether it is a housekeeper, whether it is someone to cut the grass or blow the leaves or whatever, shovel the driveway, like seems so silly to think about those as investments, but like that is part of like being a householder. I saw, and I won't name names, but a very successful guy in business like post this thing the other day saying like, not working on the weekends is like a sign of mediocrity. And I like wanted to like, I actually really like one of his books, but I was just like, dude, fuck you. Like, so I just made me, I could feel the like collective fuck you of mothers around the planet, because it's just like spoken like a true dude, single dude without kids. And this idea that we can only make money or like have a competitive advantage in business if we're like optimizing our weekends or like waking up early. I'm like, don't even get me started about talking about waking up early as like a postpartum mom with like 4 collective years of sleep deprivation. I'm like, if I am going to get an hour in the morning between 6 and 7, you better believe my head is on the pillow, not on the computer. Yeah.
Totally. Nikki was talking about how like one of the big things for her to let go of was like letting her kids ride the bus to and from school and how freeing
Mhm.
that's been for her, but how much like independence that built for them. And I feel like that's such a good example too, where like there's usually these small ways we can make these tweaks where it's like the bus was already available. You just didn't feel like you could until you could, right? Or like, you know, like the resources might be there to hire in-house support, but you don't feel like you're supposed to or you can. I just think that's so helpful to see. But yeah, I actually saw a thing. I think I might have even sent this to you. I can't remember, but it was like this guy was like, here's exactly what allowed me to create like seven, like whatever, seven successful businesses and da da da. And someone commented under it and was like, a woman behind you, a wife taking care of fucking everything else. That's what allowed you to do that.
Yep,
And it
yep,
was so funny
yep.
because of course he didn't put that in his list, but like I think if you think about like the successful man narrative, there's always a thing about like the woman behind him, right?
Mhm.
Like I think if you think about like I'm not a Grant Cardone fan, don't get me wrong, but like I think his wife is always out there talking about how like her contribution is what has helped him become the man he is, which I like respect that conversation. But I think like almost every like successful man can is citing something like that. But as a woman, holy shit, if you cite like your nanny as contributing to your success or whatever, people want to come for that.
Oh
You
my God,
know?
wasn't there I can't remember who it was. It was like I don't know if it was Adele. I feel like maybe it wasn't Adele, but it was like some
Mm.
really famous person accepting an award. Great specificity, Kate. But it
Stop.
was
Oh,
like
this is
so,
good.
but they literally mentioned the nanny, and it was like I like cried seeing that because it's like
Yes,
yes, it's so true. Like we're not doing these like epic career moves without support. And whether it's a nanny, whether it's a grandparent, whether it's a spouse,
totally.
whether it's whatever the circumstance looks like, and it doesn't need to be full time, 7 days a week, whatever. And to your point, Lace, I feel like the solutions are so much more available than we would think. Like having a nanny can be very expensive, but like having an au pair, it's like $13,000 a year, which is like, what is that? $1,084 per month, which is it's not nothing, but it's sure as hell like a more affordable expense than I think that so many other things, but so that we don't even like mentally allow ourselves to think that that would be okay. But all of the like household support, all of the child support, all of the additional support that that would bring in. And again, this isn't like a practical brainstorm workshop, but it's just like when we open the possibility to receive more support, there is actually so much there.
Yeah, totally. And I think what keeps us from that often is again like that guilt or that feeling like it shouldn't look like that or we're not supposed to or whatever. Like again, kind of like the oh my God, it would be such a big deal to like thank your nanny or the grandparents or whatever. And when it's like, and I think that um yeah, it's just helpful. I think again, not that like and support gets to look like whatever you want it to look like you're saying it. There's no like right way. But I think like what we were talking about at the beginning around like risk tolerance and being comfortable with the unknown and all of that, that comes from a well of resources.
Yes,
You can
100%.
tolerate risk when you are more resource, when you have more support, all of that. You can tolerate this much risk when you don't have that. When it's all on you and it's just you, it's unwise to tolerate a bunch of risks or to be in the unknown so significantly. And so I think we have to see how much these are tied together and how like most women are not well set up for both. They don't have this huge well of resources that allow them to take the risks and step into the unknown in a way that would create that. And so I think it's just like our job to keep talking about this and to keep going, hey, it's so much closer than you think, but there are all these things in our society and in our brains that tell us not to do that. Like, I'll just use myself as an example, but my mom was a stay-at-home mom. Right. And so the lens I had for good parent is with them all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And if I'm being really honest, I think she still very much feels that. And there's probably some thoughts
Mm-hmm.
around what that looks like for me. And I've just got to decondition that over and over and over. Right.
Mm-hmm.
But like it's real and it's there, but it's like when we have that thought, it blocks us from seeing all the potential.
100%. And I think that, the other thing it makes me think of though, Lace, is like when we, let's say that we like listen to those voices, whether it's coming from a parent, whether it's society at large, whether it's our friend group, whether it's, because a lot of us, like I said, we're the wackadoos who are entrepreneurs choosing to like build our like financial wealth in the world through like our own ideas and inventions that we're just putting out there. Like, we're the crazy ones. So for a lot of us, if we're like hanging out on the playground or meeting up at the
Yeah.
gymnastics class or whatever, our experience isn't particularly relatable. And so if we're like listening to those voices, it's going to feel very isolating and it's going to feel very wobbly. But what I think is
I
so
agree with
important
that.
to remember is like, that's then the isolated, wobbly, self-doubty. That's the version of us that our kids would be getting of us, as
Mhm.
opposed to, and to your point about like quality versus quantity of time, for me, it's like I am so motivated to like bring my like fullest into the time that I am working so that I can like unplug and be with them to their fullest. I feel like the like quality enhancement, like the notches just go up in both categories as opposed to like, I'm doing the thing I'm supposed to do to like be with them all the time, but like I'm more distracted. I'm on my phone more. I'm checking out more. I'm zoning out. I'm feeling frustrated. I'm snapping. Not that that is always the dichotomy, but like I know for me, I am so much more present and available and intentional as a mother because of how present and available and intentional I am in my work.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I'll just speak for me, but I think like everyone always asks me, like, how can you do that many one-on-one calls or this or that or whatever? And it's like, for me, like, when I'm at work, I'm like on work. I mean, I go out and have lunch with Bennett and different things like that. But like when I'm here, I'm here, right? And like I'm on call. So I'm like literally here, right?
Yes.
um, but when I'm off that, because we have support around the house, I'm not with him trying to do 500 things around the house, right? Because I
Yes.
have designated work time, I'm not with him trying to like sneak shit in on my phone. And I'm not saying that that has to be how it is for everyone, but like just speaking from my own experience, like that is when I feel best, is when like I know what time is for what.
Mm-hmm.
And when I get to be with him or when I get to be at my job, having support that's handling other things that I don't have to is like the single most important thing that has helped me continue to like operate in a way that I want. Like I want one-on-one calls. And so the way I can do that is get resourced in a bunch of other areas. And I just think like you said, that might mean community, that might being around other people who this is normal for too. Like I know for me, having people that were talking about having nannies and what that looked like and stuff like that has been so valuable. I know for so many of my clients that are having babies this year, being able to go, tell me about the nanny situation or what you do. Because
Yeah,
like that, like most of us don't have like a million people around us that are doing that. Or
totally.
even hearing like, oh, that makes sense. Like I never even thought like what it looks like to hire out more house support. Like we just kind of need people to remind us of this stuff because it's not getting fed to us most of the time. Like if you're scrolling Instagram, that's not what you're seeing, you know?
100%, 100%. And it is so, so important to be in spaces, again, especially as moms, where these conversations are normalized because most of the like spheres of belonging that are available in the culture are all focused around the kid and not, or like around like a, like, bounce back postpartum yoga class or something, or like a mommy and me workout class or whatever. But it's not like, hey, what dreams are you actively working towards and what resources are you using and breaking cultural stereotypes behind the scene in order to do that, right? Like that is an intentional room.
Yes, I remember being in one conversation where someone was sharing with me how much childcare she had, and it was almost shocking. And she was saying, like, I never share this publicly because I understand how shocking this sounds, but this is what's good for me and my family. This is what's good for me and my nervous system. And I was like, oh my God, thank you so much for saying that. Like I might not even choose that or choose that much, but just to know that like it's an empowered choice you've made is like so supportive for me to even hear that. And I just feel like that's not what we get 9 times out of 10. Do you know what I mean?
Well, what's interesting because childcare, and I don't know this particular person's situation, but, and I don't know what I'm actually really curious what the number is. You don't have to say who it was, but I'm so curious what the number is. But like, let's just say it was 60 hours a week or something, like something where you're like, what? Um, I would imagine that like in that time, because there are absolutely times when our nanny is here and I'm not like working. I'm not even napping or showering or going for a run. I mean, there are times I'm doing those other things.
Yeah.
There are times that like I am hanging out on the rug, like with the kids and she's helping like tidy it up, their breakfast or whatever. And it's to your point. It's like, just because the
Yeah.
support is there doesn't mean it has to be used so that like I can be absent and doing other things. It's like giving ourselves permission as moms to not like struggle with having to do everything. It's
Yep.
like we're allowed to mother with a cushion.
Yeah, that was exactly this person's point. She's like, I'm with them a lot of that time. It makes me feel better to be with them with somebody else
Yeah.
present and there to help. And like, again, I just feel like, yeah, that's because that's how we used to mother. And so it's like so like not accepted almost to say that. But when someone says that, you're like, yeah, it does feel nice to be a parent with another adult there
Yes.
or
Oh my
whatever.
God. This
Right?
also, I hadn't even made this connection until now, Lace, but this is like, I know you have feelings about this as well, but like it's sort of like in the coaching industry when we're like, yeah, I like pay for a coach, but I don't even use it. And it's like the best or whatever. Or like we as coaches make our clients feel like they shouldn't use the support they're
Yes,
paying for.
yes.
It's almost like the same thing of like when I see people like, or I like did this with like no I scaled to this amount with like no team, no support, no anything, as if that's like the thing that we should be
The
lauding and
pedestal.
like
Yeah, yeah.
celebrating. It's almost like, and I built this business with like no childcare, no help, no support. I'm like, to me, I'm like, how do we get you more resource, honey? Because like that's not the model that I want. Not that the model should be X numbers of hours of childcare, but like the model that we are working towards, like for me, my mission is that like to see well-resourced mothers on every level,
Totally.
emotionally, energetically, physically, financially. We want to see mothers resourced. And if they're not, then, and we're celebrating, like making it without being resourced, like we're just playing into the martyr paradigm.
We are in patriarchy. Like we have bought into the patriarchy fully and
Yes,
completely when we are like the best woman is one who does all of this without needing anything from anyone. Like,
totally.
no,
No,
no, no, no. It's the same thing
exactly.
in business of how I get so fired up about the like, I have a coach and I don't use it. Like, oh, okay, so what you're telling me is the best woman is the kind who pays someone else gives her resources away, takes nothing for herself, and is somehow able to still like white knuckle it enough to get a result. Like vomit.
Yeah, totally. Totally. Right there with
Um,
you.
Stephanie said there's like a friend of her son or a parent of her son's friend who used to do all drop off and pick up for her kids from school, but her husband worked out of town during the week. And then she hired a driver to help for that. And like what a game changer it was for her. And I just think that's so like, yeah, just like those little things where it's like, I'm sure it feels so ridiculous to be like, I have a driver for my kids, but it's like,
Oh, babe, that's like
it's,
one of the biggest things for us. Our kids now, Jack is, can we just talk about Jack is going to school? I can't even, but it's 45 minutes away.
yeah.
And it is a big ass commitment. So yeah, most of the other, it's like this little Waldorf homeschool backyard community. And it's like a very particular like group that, which is why they're going to the school that's so far. But our nanny does 90% of drop off and pick
Yeah.
up, and most of everyone else, it's like a parent.
Yeah.
And I'm going on the first day, but like I am not doing most of it. And that is also like, it is okay. It is okay. It is okay. Because at that time, that hour and a half each way, drop off and pick up, someone has to be in the car. That is not the best use of my time. That's not the best use of like team, family,
Yeah.
resources, energy. Not it.
Amen. Nikki said she thinks it's like cultural to Americans too. She says she has a friend from South Africa who had a nanny, a housekeeper, and a very present mom. And that was like totally normal in their culture, which I think that's so true too. Like it is so very typical of like the culture we live in and is not typical of like almost any other culture to like work and produce at the level that we do without any of the supports. I feel like we could have such a long conversation there, but totally.
Oh my God. Well, and I mean, I know I don't even know why, as if I'm like a health coach, which I am not. I do enjoy eating healthy and being healthy as I can, but it just like that example of like what we have to sacrifice if we're not in a culture that has the like padding and support. It's like that's why, and I'm not like shaming fast food, but like that's why it's like it's easier to like get McDonald's on the way home, or it's easier to like just stop,
Totally.
like cut corners in these other areas because we don't have an endless supply of like one person. I can't like cook a home cooked dinner and be fully present with my kids and take care of my body and grow $1 million business and like, no, something's got to give. So like, what is the squad that we're putting in place in order to make, if all of those things are a priority, let them be a priority and then figure out what we need in order to make it happen.
Amen. I totally agree. I love this. I want to end by just saying that point about resource mothers is like it for me. I just think that's so perfect and so beautiful. And I just love how much you stand for that because I think it's so true. Like that's the message we don't hear enough. And we need to hear over and over and over again because it's what we all want to be. Nobody's a mom that's like, oh, I don't want to be a resource mom, right? Like, do you know what I mean?
Totally.
But there's a lot of people who are a mom that feel incredibly guilty for trying to lean into that. I mean, I still do. I know you still do, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
we decondition it and break it down all the time, but like it's gonna keep popping up. And so we just need someone saying that all the time. So I love you for being that person.
Mm.
Speaking of saying that more, can you talk about what you have coming up?
Yes, absolutely. Well, thank you so much for this conversation. It's so juicy. And I feel like it's more, it's what moms need. You know, that last piece that you just shared, Lace, it reminds me of one of the last times that I shared an event like the one that I'm hosting on September 10th. The amount of hate, it was fascinating. And I feel like anytime as mothers, as women at large in the patriarchy, but um, that we make a stand for
Yeah.
like thriving that breaks out of the boxes and the conditioning that we are told we have to stay inside of, it pisses some people right off. I mean, I had people saying to me, you are disgusting. You are everything that is wrong with society. Your kids are fucked. Like, you know, glad to know you've got like you're such like a money hungry mom, like those poor children. Like, I mean, really like awful stuff. And I think that this is precisely why it's so important to like calibrate our nervous systems and our like human feeling of belonging into places where it is normalized
Yeah.
to um really demand and desire to be thriving in multiple areas and like not make ourselves wrong for that because there's so much conditioning around why it's not okay to do that. And I am unapologetic in the way that I stand for like the more I thrive as a mother on every level, relationally, energetically, in my health, in my finances, in my impact, in my sense of personal fulfillment, in my relationship, the more that I am thriving, the better template that I'm setting for my children. So I just like turn that right on its head and say, actually, no, this is exactly the thing that is giving back to my kids the most. So on
And
that
make
note,
your kids
um,
fucking responsible for all that shit for you.
yes, yes.
Say that. Okay, go on.
So I am hosting an event. I am so excited. We actually just released the trailer for it and the details for it today. It is called Maternal Wealth. It is a 2-hour free workshop. So speaking of childcare,
Yeah.
book the babysitter, call the grandma, get a movie, buy a new coloring book and a box of Crayolas. Like, do what you got to do to keep buy the snacks, all the snacks, all the snacks.
Always next.
Do what you got to do. Come live. It's on September 10th. It is a 2-hour workshop. I am guiding a process. I'm really excited, Lace, because I do a lot of like somatic work in my higher level containers, but I've never done anything like this in a
Yeah.
free workshop. So we're diving deep into strategy but we're also having a somatic experience. And this event is called Maternal Wealth. And we are really focused on breaking down how we can align with our maternal wisdom, our maternal instinct, our maternal knowing to use, which is we're often taught that that is the skill set that only pertains to the household. And my argument, which is backed by data, is that that is actually also the skill that empowers us to build wildly successful companies. And so if we're using those maternal skills to build wealth, we are moving with the natural momentum that is there. So come join me, find out more. And I can't wait to have you tap into that maternal power and support you to grow your wealth from it.
Amazing. Will you just drop a link for us when we jump off?
Yes, I will. To you in Zoom or
Yeah,
in
on
the,
Facebook, whatever,
oh,
anything.
okay, great. Yes, I will. It is just, you can DM me the word wealth on Instagram. I'm at the Millionaire Mother. Hold on, I'm trying to type this to you. But you can also go to themillionairemother.com/maternal-wealth, but that's a lot. So you could also just DM me wealth or click the link in the live stream here with Lace.
I'm gonna throw it in. Okay, I'm gonna throw it in right now. Amazing, guys. Thank you so much for being here. I love you. This was so, so good. I just, such an important conversation.
So good. Thank you,
That one's not
Lacey.
working for me.
That one's not working?
Oh, you
Oh,
know what?
that's because I wrote
I see.
material.
Yep, you wrote
Sorry.
material.
And
Okay,
I
guys,
did.
I'm gonna get it in there. It's working. Okay. Amazing. All right. I hope you
Sorry.
guys have a beautiful week. Thank you so much for being here, Cait. Love you.
Love you. Thanks, guys. Bye.